I kind of want to start a little bit more broadly. I am wondering how the pandemic, some of the changing both consumer trends, supply chain realities of this year has changed the nature of the area of business that your product is in.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge for any business. As a startup, I guess we're used to pivoting, so in that sense, it's probably easier for us than larger companies. But yeah, the fundamentals of what we're trying to do haven't changed at all. You know, the fundamentals of meat consumption globally, our inability to sort of meet demand for animal-based meat globally, that's a given. That's never going to change. But what has seemed to have changed is consumers are sort of reevaluating their relationship with what they eat, just like they're reevaluating their relationship with a lot of things. And we are beginning to see sort of probably more openness, I guess, with consumers to alternatives which may be more sustainable and more healthy.
How much of a boost, both, I guess, psychologically, but also I'm wondering what you plan to do with that money, is that latest fundraising and investment that you've received from Temasek and Goldman?
Well, it's a great vote of confidence from investors who really know what they're doing in this space, and we were quite overwhelmed by the response. It clearly is a very important area for investors, and the raising is really important for us. We've got very big ambitions to be number one in Australia, but to expand globally, because the growth in meat consumption globally isn't in Australia. Actually, mature markets like Australia and the US seem to be reducing meat consumption. It's in the developing markets and in Asia in particular, where growth in meat consumption is rising. And that is the existential problem that we've got. We just don't have enough land on the planet to grow enough grain to feed the animals that we are eating. So this is the opportunity that V2food is clearly facing into, very much around this growing trend in increasing meat consumption. How do we actually sustain it?
Yeah, here in the U.S. too, we've seen a craze around Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat. So where in Asia are you seeing those opportunities, and is the excitement as big as it has been here?
It's beginning, yes, but I think it depends how you frame it. I mean, meat consumption of burgers in Asia isn't that high. So if you're going to be successful in Asia, you've got to be successful in the areas of meat and cuisine which are really important, particularly if you're going to get to the mainstream. And so that for us is very important. So we make sure that we're focusing on the sorts of meat that are eaten, and developing our R&D to make sure that we deliver against what mainstream consumers want to buy. Because if we're only confined to wealthy niche vegans, then that's not going to actually have a material effect on sustainability on a planetary scale. And we're pretty serious about trying to make a difference here.
And what are you seeing in terms of competition, and also when it comes to reaching the Asian audience? How does culture affect the appetite for your products? Because I know, for example, in countries like South Korea or Japan, where I've lived, going out to eat meat is actually pretty fancy. You wouldn't get meat during wartime. So it's sort of, it's ingrained in Korean and Japanese people's minds that meat is really luxurious.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we need to face into. As people get wealthier, they aspire to eat more meat, and that's kind of the human condition across the planet. It's something, meat is a luxury. As you get more wealthy, you aspire to eating more meat, and if we're going to be successful in plant-based meat, we need to make sure it's as aspirational as animal-based meat, and that's the trick. And I think we would be naive to think that we know all the answers. We're working with partners who are China-based, Asian-based, and they'll be working with us to unlock those insights, to understand it better, and how to make plant-based meat not just delicious and nutritious, which is a given, and affordable, but it's actually got to be aspirational as well.
How are your partnerships side going? In particular, you know, I know it's crucial, as kind of Sherry alluded to have these restaurant partners, to have these, you know, fast food partners as well. Does that kind of really suggest that cracking into the mainstream demand will be key for the next leg up for growth?
Yeah, I mean, we launched in Australia with Hungry Jack's, which is part of the Burger King empire, with the Rebel Whopper there, and we think fast food has a role to play. But what we do is we actually do look at where the bulk of meat consumption is and try and understand, well, what does that supply chain look like, and how do we enter into that supply chain in a way that's affordable for everyday consumers? And that's in some markets, QSR is an important part of that, and it's certainly a good way of getting your brand out there, but it's not where the bulk of meat is being consumed. So we do need to be in other areas as well.
Competition in Asia?
Huge. Everybody is coming into this space. All major food multinationals are entering the space and are very active, and there's local players as well. So the physics of this opportunity are undeniable. I know you quoted the 28 billion opportunity in 5 years, but if you look at the intentionality in China to halve meat consumption over the next 10 years or so, then you're talking tens of millions of tons of meat, which is many multiples of that in terms of the size of the opportunity. It's hundreds of billions of dollars. So that's going to attract a lot of capital. It's going to attract a lot of startups, and it's already attracting most of the major multinationals into this space. We have a belief that we can be successful. We can be a part of that not because of our size, because we are a startup, but because of the technology that we've developed together with the CSIRO. Because of our Australianness, which is very marketable, I guess, because we have a reputation for food safety and food quality, and we believe that we can play an important part in Asian and developing markets.